Hey everyone, and welcome. I am Morgan Gist McDonald, founder CEO of Paper Raven Books, and I have with us today a super special guest who is launching her brand new book. Now, she's already a best-selling author, multiple award-winning author, and her new book is all about her adventures as a young woman. And if you love great stories and cultures and people, and getting out of your comfort zone, and you want to hear about someone's adventuresome life, you are going to want to hang on for this one. We are discussing with the author her new book, Becoming Amazed, Discovering the World with Eyes Wide Open. She's already had massive success with her first book, Becoming Fearless, Finding Courage in the African Wilderness. And I am so excited to welcome author Brenda Smith with us. Thanks, Brenda, for being here.
Thank you for having me here.
Well, I'm super excited because you dove headfirst into the author career. You've been a CPA by training, but even before that, you were an adventurer and then went through career world, and coming in this new chapter of life, you said, you know what, I am going to write my stories down. And you have done such an amazing job of just diving headfirst into this author world. And we're going to get into Becoming Amazed. I want to toot the horn of Becoming Fearless just a little bit, and it sets us up for what happens in Becoming Amazed. But Becoming Fearless, it's been the best nonfiction travel book 2023 by Reader Reviews. It's the winner of the Nonfiction Regional World 2024 by Story Trade Awards, Silver Medal for Nonfiction Adventure 2024 for Reader's Favorites Awards. Just got an audiobook award as well. You read the audiobook. So I'm sure it's been fascinating for you to like relive your stories. There it is, Becoming Fearless, the world phenomenon. And Becoming Fearless has been so well received, I think, because it has an interesting like conflict moment. You're a young woman, and your boss says, all right, Brenda, you're coming on this trip with me to Africa, and you've never left the country. And it's in the 1980s, right? Which, modernization was not what it was. Women's rights and, ability to travel is not what it was. And you said okay, and you went on your way to Africa. Can you give us just a very brief kind of, what do you feel like are the main themes or things that you discovered about yourself in Becoming Fearless, knowing that we're going to set ourselves up for book two too?
Well, first of all, I didn't exactly say, yeah, okay, I'll go. Um, I kind of went kicking and screaming. It was the 1980s. We were going to a part of Africa through the largest uninhabited game reserve in Africa. There were no roads, no people, nothing. It was just wild animals for 170 miles on a river. And so I was very leery about going. I thought, I'd never been outside the United States, and I was very leery about going because I didn't know anything about Africa except that what I'd read, which was basically Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness with cannibals and wild animals waiting to bite your head off. So I didn't really want to go, but my boss was already getting the reputation of being an iconic adventurer, explorer. And I was intimidated when he said, Brenda, you need a real adventure. You're coming to Africa with me on this trip. I didn't have the courage to say no. I don't want to do this. I really wanted to go to Alaska, but not Africa. But I went, and I am so grateful to Richard for my whole rest of my life that he made me go. And what I learned on the trip was that there is a huge world we live in that most people never get a chance to see. And I feel so, so grateful and lucky that I saw a part of Africa that was pure, untouched wilderness, something that many people will never, ever experience. And I learned that the wild animals are not there to bite our heads off. And along the way, I had this moment of thinking about why was I so afraid when everybody else on the trip was like gung-ho, ready to go, and it came to me that the reason that I was so afraid was because of my family situation. Growing up with an alcoholic father, um, and a very controlling sort of family. So I never wanted to step out of, what was normal and right and proper. And I was afraid of my father when he got drunk. And so on this river trip, what I discovered is that really fear, for the most part, is a personal choice. And I didn't have to be afraid. I could choose not to be afraid. And when that revelation came to me, I just sort of embraced this whole new world I was in and wanted more. And Richard, where should I go next? What can I do to see more of the world? So that's a little bit about what this first book is. It's of encouraging people to step outside their comfort zone and to really experience something beyond what they could imagine.
Yeah. So good. And as a memoirist, a lot of the big challenges that first time authors especially have with memoir is, well, how do I tell my entire life in one book? And you're here and you're sort of answering that question beautifully, which is, we pick a moment, a few moments in our lives, and we really focus on that for the purpose of one book, to take the reader through a journey and to let the reader see you have a small transformation. I mean, I'm sure, Brenda, you've done so much in your life, and what you're able to cover in Becoming Fearless, and that moment in Africa is a slice, right? And yet the reason I think that you're having so many readers come back and leave these amazing reviews on your book is because you show them your transformation kind of in that slice of life, and you still have so much room for more stories. And so that brings us right up to Becoming Amazed. And I am going to share my screen quickly because I want you to see these two books together. So we've got Becoming Fearless, which is already published, and we've got, this is the working images of Becoming Amazed, because it is actually launching. So Becoming Amazed, discovering the world with eyes wide open. And you can just tell that we're about to embark on a whole new set of adventures. So, Brenda, I'd like for you to take us into what do we encounter with you in Becoming Amazed?
So where Becoming Fearless ends was of me wanting to get out there and explore the world. And I had an opportunity just about 9 months later to do another trip with Sobek. And we went to the country of Ethiopia to do, believe it or not, a 30-day long river trip through the very remotest heart of Ethiopia. So I decided that I've been fortunate enough to go on a lot of different, really adventurous, exciting trips. And I felt that I really needed to tell people, my readers, the people who loved Becoming Fearless, they wanted more. So I have a lot more adventures to share. And this book has actually got 8 different adventures that I've been on in 6 different countries. And the first one was, of course, the trip in Ethiopia. That was really important. And the reason why I wanted so much to tell this story was to show that while our world is amazing and awesome, we are paying a price with the, as humans progress, we need to build infrastructure. We need to change things. We're constantly modifying the world that we live in. And in Ethiopia, the population there has grown, and they have needed to generate more power, have more water for agriculture. And so this amazing 30-day long river trip that I went on, now that river has 5 dams on it that pretty much has wiped out the entire valley, including some of the indigenous tribes that live there. On our river trip, we actually got to interact with about 3 different tribes. And at the end of the trip, we actually stayed with a tribe for about 3 days. That tribe had never seen white people before. And it was a little bit scary, because Conrad, who was our trip leader, who lived in Ethiopia, ended up having to go find out what happened to the truck that was supposed to come and pick us and our equipment up. So it left myself and Peter and Valerie, all white Americans, first time in Africa. Well, my second time, but staying in an area with these tribal people, and we didn't know if they were friendly. We didn't know exactly what was going to happen. But what we discovered very wonderfully was that they were as curious about us as we were about them, and we shared some really wonderful moments together. Trying to learn their language through charades. They sang and danced for us. One of their elders climbed, actually shinnied up a tree to get fresh, raw African honey for us. And so we discovered, or I discovered, that I think in the world we have much more in common with people of other cultures, other geographic areas. And I hate to see in the world where people start to label other people and they don't want to accept, somebody who is different than them. Um, well, I'm here to tell you that I've traveled all over the world, and I think there's so much more that unites us in common than separates us. And that's sort of a theme through several of the stories in the book.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
I love it, Brenda. So yeah, thank you for taking us through that first trip. And I know there's a couple more that I still want to talk about. And folks, if you're here and you're watching, you're listening, and you're like, this is my kind of adventure book. The good news is the book is launching. So we want to get this book out to as many readers as possible. You can actually grab a copy of the ebook for free right now. So if you go to paperravenbooks.com/becoming amazed, that's all one word. And I'll drop the link right next to this video so you can just click, take you over to Amazon. You can grab that ebook for free and go ahead and dive in. Of course, the other versions of the book are also available if you prefer. And that ebook can be just downloaded instantly and on your Kindle ready for the weekend. So we'd encourage you to go ahead and do that now while you're here and while you're listening to us. And one of the things that you and I have talked about, Brenda, but I think is a really interesting contrast between becoming fearless and becoming amazed is you said becoming fearless was really more about your encounters with wildlife and animals and kind of that almost like raw fear. Whereas becoming amazed, now you've got a little bit of that courage, right, that you have found, and you're off traveling a bit more independently. Richard got you back over there for trip 2, but then you continue on in your adventures and wanderlust, and it becomes much more about like encountering other cultures and other people, and it's not all easy, right? It's not like you just make the decision,
no.
oh, we're all kind of the same and now we all get along. It's like, no, you continue to press into that discomfort and find yourself in new situations, new cultures, new places. Would you be willing to tell us a little bit about your time in Pakistan, for instance?
Yes, yes. Um, Never in my wildest dreams as a little girl who adored Pippi Longstockings, did I ever imagine that I would go and actually live for 4 years on the other side of the world in Pakistan, an Islamic country. But I got a job with the US government that posted me. My first posting was in Pakistan. You don't get to say, no, I don't want to go there. So I actually went to Pakistan, and while I was there, I struggled as a woman. I struggled with the difference in cultural beliefs about, number one, about arranged marriage and also about women's rights. I grew up as a teenager in the United States during the days of Woodstock and, free love, love the one you're with, romantic love, all of that stuff. In Pakistan, women are really sheltered. They were not really permitted to go outside their homes for the most part, unless they were accompanied by a male family member. So I went there thinking, no, they're wrong. This is not right. Not that my goal was to change every woman, or change the country of Pakistan to our way of thinking. What happened quite ironically is that they changed my way of thinking. Um, but I had the opportunity to actually hire a young female woman to work for me as my housekeeper, and which was very unusual in Pakistan because the families generally did not let their females work outside the home. But this young woman came to me. She had a twinkle in her eye. I wanted to, give her the chance, the opportunity, and it was just probably the best thing I did in Pakistan. Um, I had to go or actually decided to start wearing their clothing because the reception that I got as an American, as a foreigner, by making that decision to wear their clothing, bought me a lot of respect from the Pakistani people that I had to work with. And so my maid actually decided to take me to a young female seamstress. Again, a very unusual thing. She worked in her home, but she was still in high school and studied. She got magazines from um, the airlines workers who would take them out of the pockets of the airlines. So she would get magazines and study the fashion designs from Europe, and she would work them into her designs for the shalwar kameez, which is a dress and pants that women wore in Pakistan. And so I started to get her to make my clothing. And over the course of a year, I got to know her a lot better. She had wonderful dreams of studying abroad and becoming a fashion designer. And about a year after my maid took me to her the first time, we went, and I noticed that she was very upset. My maid and she spoke in Urdu, and you could tell that there was something really bad or something wrong. And when I found out what it was that her marriage at 16 had been arranged by her family. And it was even worse than that. It wasn't she was going to be the second wife of an older man who lived way out in the rural part of Pakistan. And I just rebelled at the thought of her having to go and be married to this man. So I decided I was going to kidnap her. I was a foreign diplomat. I had immunity. Nobody could come into my house that was off, that was out of bounds. So I just figured I would kidnap her and I would take her with me when I went back to the United States. Um, Unfortunately, that plan didn't work. My maid, told me that that would be impossible. I would ruin her life. And my female colleagues, the few female colleagues that did work with me in Islamabad, made me see the whole situation in a completely different way. They said, you can't do it because this is what's expected. She has a duty to her family and she will fulfill it. Even if it makes her sad, she will accept it. And think of what she can do in that rural village. If she takes her sewing machine with her, she can make really great clothing for the people in the village. She can teach the women how to sew. She can, instruct young girls into, how they can learn to make an income for themselves. And by the time they finished talking to me, I kind of was like, okay, I won't kidnap her. I won't get myself thrown out of this country by our ambassador. But anyway, yeah, I've had the opportunity to meet and learn about different cultures, and have really had my own opinions of different types of people changed radically. I'm very open-minded now. I accept people, who they are, where they are, for what they are.
And I think that's one of the reasons I'm personally drawn to the title that you chose, becoming amazed, because amazed has this sense of like you're open, you're curious. You can't possibly be judging anything when you're amazed except
No.
just to take it in, right?
Right.
And that you're able to tell so many stories of different people, and you're not, naively amazed upon first encounter. There's a bit of a back and forth, and there's a bit of a skepticism, and just like we're humans, this is what our psychology does when we meet something different. And yet you're able just to continue leaning into that until it opens up and you say, oh, I see now something different than what I had before. And I think that we want these types of stories, especially now, when people are Yes, we travel a lot, but do we travel in the sense that we want to know and understand and to be changed by that travel? Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't, and and we don't mean to. But I think that's what these stories kind of open us up to is that opportunity. So I'd be curious, Brenda, what has it been like for you to write these two books as a writer?
Well, I didn't know a whole lot about writing. When I was in high school and college, I studied math and science. I was a bit of a nerd, loved math and science, hated English and languages. Very ironically, I've used English and languages far more in my life than I have used, well, I shouldn't say, definitely more than science. With my accounting background, I've used numbers, but um, I grew up as the daughter of a librarian and the granddaughter of a librarian. My grandmother was our town librarian for 26 years. So I guess I can kind of say I grew up in the library. Many days after school, I would go over. They put me to work in the children's room, putting away books, telling stories. And I've always looked up to my grandmother. And I think that part of what I wanted to do when I wrote the first book was to preserve a little slice of time in a certain part of the world because nobody else can tell that story. I was there as one of the very few people who ever had that experience. So I wanted to do that. I wanted to document it. But as I wrote it, I realized, no, this is a bigger thing. This is talking about encouraging people to get out of their comfort zones. This is encouraging people to open their eyes and go where they can see things they've never seen before. So as I got writing the book, I got more and more excited about it. I got pretty much a first draft done on my own. I did take one memoir writing class, but I ended up with a first draft and didn't know what to do with it. I knew enough about traditional publishing and the length of time it takes. Plus, in my genre of memoir, the traditional publishers only want to publish your book if you're a celebrity. If nobody's ever heard of you before, they don't want to invest any money in publishing a story about you. So I'm thinking to myself, what should I do? I happened across a Morgan workshop one day and thought, this is it. I need to self-publish. And so I signed on with Paper Raven. And from that point of having a draft, the hard part of publishing was really you guys doing it for me and guiding me along the way. So it's been fascinating. I've learned so much. And for the money that I've spent, it has been so worth it. And my book is out in the world. It took Paper Raven just 6 months from the time I gave them my first draft until my first book was published. So once that was done, and I decided to go ahead and do the audiobook as well, because a memoir is very well received when it's narrated by the author. So I did that. And I knew I wanted to write more stories. I have lots and lots of adventures. I will write until I die, I think, at this point. So yeah, I set out to do book number 2, and it has taken me, it'll probably be about 16 months from the start of writing it until it launches. I've learned a lot about self-editing. I've learned a lot about using beta readers to give me feedback. I know that when I'm writing, I'm not writing just for me, I'm writing for you. I want you to be able to vicariously, if nothing else, go on these adventures with me. So it's been a challenge, but I've taken to it. I love it. I think I'm just going to keep writing forever.
That is amazing, Brenda. Well, thank you. And of course, I'm honored that somehow the internet connected us, right? Like this is a little bit mysterious and miraculous in its own way that we can, connect on the internet and produce these amazing books that
Yes.
change readers' hearts and minds and lives forever. It's truly amazing.
Mhm. Mhm.
So honored to be on the journey with you. And what I love about your story in particular, Brenda, is that yes, you had sort of a childhood familiarity with books, and many of us, do. If we want to write books, it's often because we have some sort of background. We grew up loving reading, or it was important for us in some way. And you took a big leap to say, I'm going to write a book.
I
And maybe it
did.
didn't start out that way. Maybe it started out, as you said, as like, I'm going to document kind of what happened, but very quickly that turns into a book. And you probably felt some of that fear, of who am I to do this? And yet you just took the next step and the next step and the next step. And you focused on book one. How do we get book one finished and done and out? Audiobook. Okay, here we go. And now you're on to Becoming Amazed. And that's out in the world launching,
Mhm.
and you'll just take it one step at a time, which just feels like very, very practical and doable.
And I do have a lot of adventures I still do wanna write about. Um, you know, I I will say that my 3rd book is gonna be a little bit different. Um, I found out 8 years ago that I actually was diagnosed with a very rare condition called stiff person syndrome. And it basically has pretty much robbed me of my mobility. So, what a mentor long, long time ago told me about writing a book was that you needed to put your butt in a chair and write. And that was how you would get a book written. So now, with this condition that I have, I can't go out and climb mountains or raft rivers anymore. I spend most of my time with my butt in my chair, and this provides me with a way of making my life meaningful, purposeful. Um, I am never going to be one that's going to say, "Poor me, why did this happen to me?" I'm going to take that lemon that I got and make it into lemonade, and you guys are all going to be the beneficiaries of my having, been diagnosed with this condition. But yeah, so I will keep writing because that's what I can do, and I love it. So
Amazing. Great. So, folks, if you're here and you're like, Brenda's my kind of author, I love these stories. I want to hear more. Good news is the book to Becoming Amazed is launching. Now, of course, you can always go grab Becoming Fearless. That book is on Amazon and available, wherever books are sold, for paperback, hardback, audiobook. And so that's ready, locked, loaded for you. And Becoming Amazed, the ebook is free right now. So you can go to paperravenbooks.com/becoming amazed, all one word. The ebook's free, ready for you to download. You can also get other versions of the book, paperback, hardback, soon to come audiobook, I'm sure. If that's what you like. But go ahead and grab that ebook while you're here, while you're thinking about it and you want some stories to read. Certainly you can read Becoming Amazed first. There you can dive in wherever you would like to dive in, and follow Brenda on her adventures, because there's more to come. So Brenda, any kind of last words for your readers as they're diving into Becoming Fearless, Becoming Amazed?
I just would be so honored for any of you to read these stories. I can pretty much promise you that you'll learn something about the world, um, and hopefully be entertained and amazed as I was. So please come with me. I'd love you to take the journey with me.
Right. Amazing. Well, Brenda, thank you so much for being here. And everyone, thank you for being with us. Go grab your copy of Becoming Amazed and let us know what you think of these incredible stories with Brenda Smith. All right, y'all have a lovely rest of your day. We'll see you next time. Bye.